Okay.
Recording. Okay. All right. Good afternoon. How are we?
Good.
Okay, good. So like Francesca said, thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. I've not been in front of a classroom in a minute, so just don't mind my nerves and all of that. You know, it's very intimidating to talk to a lot of really smart people at Georgia Tech about art and art history. So, you know, lean in, have fun, enjoy. But when Francesca, we bumped into each other a few weeks ago, right, at the Swan Coach House Gallery. If you've never been to the Swan Coach House Gallery, it's really, really impressive. Obviously, I'll talk a little bit in a minute about my own former institution and museum, but the Swan Coach House is a really small space that was founded by what's called the Dirty Dozen, which were 12 women who felt that there was a kind of a dearth of experimental and risk taking works, and they created this little gallery, and it's really, really fun. So if you've not been there, please go. Currently on view is an exhibition curated by TK Smith, who actually did a show at Atlanta Contemporary. He curated the 2021 Atlanta Biennial. And two artists that are former studio artists at Atlanta Contemporary, Kelly Taylor Mitchell and Sergio Suarez. So we ran into each other, and as you all, I can imagine, know this man's energy. He was like, hey, you have to do this talk, basically. And I was so, okay, sure. So I said yes, and we started talking, and I thought, well, what fun to talk about what is art and why is it essential? Because these are things that I think a lot about. So wait, how do I got it. Okay.
No panic.
Don't panic. So Carciofi, as Francesco said, I studied in Italy my second year of college. I went to St. Mary's College, which is the all-women's or female institution that is across the street from the University of Notre Dame. And I studied my second year in Rome, Italy. At the time, my college did not have an art history program. So I'm tenacious and forward thinking. And as a result, actually, they do have an art history program to this day because myself and a couple of other students vied to create an art history program. And as a result, I actually had to take quite a few classes at Notre Dame, and I got to hang out. I didn't get a degree from Notre Dame. That's cool. I'm okay with that. But I became an art historian, and I ended up basically getting a triple minor in theology, English, and art. And for those of you that are artists, and for those of you that are just arts practitioners, I was in my third year of school, and one of my art teachers told me I was I was going to be an art historian because I couldn't hack it as an artist. To which I replied, I'm going to be an art historian so I can critique bad art. Needless to say, I did not do well in his class, but we actually became friends later on. So it was just kind of a good time to like really figure out your voice and why does art matter, which is the whole point. So Carciofi was born during the pandemic. What ultimately happened was a friend of mine reached out to me. And of course, remember when everybody was singing for free and doing all these performances at Atlanta Contemporary, my own former institution, we were doing lots of presentations online for free. And one of my girlfriends said, you should start an online art history class. And I thought, what an amazing idea with all of the free time that I don't have. Because keeping a nonprofit contemporary art museum alive and thriving during a pandemic was a 120-hour-a-week job. So kind of put it in the back of my mind. And then when I decided to make the decision to step down from Atlanta Contemporary, I thought this would be fun. So up front, for those of you that are not in the classroom, and for those of you that are here and you played with them earlier, part of what I'm doing, I think for those of you who play on your screens a lot, this thing is really a lot, right? It takes a lot of our energy, it takes a lot of our time. And for those of you that are in relationships, right, you can have an entire evening not speaking to your significant other and just like, you know, dipping. And so the idea of doing art history classes on Zoom sounds good, and I've done it a couple of times, but I really wanted to do something that's super lo-fi, experiential, and fun. And so a few months ago, I had reached out to some colleagues, and during COVID, when a lot of institutions were doing online, they decided it was a really good time to clean out their storage units. And as a result, I have acquired 4,000 original art history slides that I am going through. I have 3 slide projectors. I have 2 Panavision kind of viewers, and I'm going to be doing in-person pop-up hyper experiential art history lessons. Slides with screens, and it's really, really fun, and people don't know what slides are, they don't know what slide projectors are, and to break bread and learn about art in this like kind of lo-fi way is super fun. It's very analog, it's very cool, and I usually have a no screens policy, but I won't do that to you all today. So by studying the rich visual cultures of the past and present, you learn tips, tricks, and techniques for interpreting art in the complex world around you. So what to expect today? So I do not like to talk at people. That is not how I work. I would like this to be more of a conversation. So this is not your typical art history lesson. I follow the Socratic method of teaching. So I'm going to invite you to ask questions, be in open dialogue, encourage belief sharing and critical thinking. Facts and information will of course be provided specific to works of art, and the historical context in which they were made will be shared as well. So anybody know what that is? Where this picture is from? My Italians in the room, if you get this wrong, I'm going to be mildly disappointed. No? Give you a hint, it's a really big church in Rome. No, it's St. Peter's Cathedral. Yeah, so it's St. Peter's Cathedral. Built by? Just kidding. A couple of architects. One of them, Michelangelo. So, Veronica, Kessenich, hello again. So I ran Atlanta Contemporary for off and on about 9.5 years, I guess, in the end. So I'm from Atlanta. I was born and raised and lived and worked here my whole life. Never thought that. By the way, be prepared to speak. I am going to make you all go around the room and introduce yourselves in like really quick, rapid fire. Except for those online, sorry, but you're lovely. So I'm from here, and I went to school, as I said, in South Bend, Indiana. Lived in Rome, came back, never thought I would make my life working in art in Atlanta, but here I am. And Atlanta Contemporary is a nonprofit contemporary art museum. We actually did become a museum my final year, which is really, really important. We're AAM accredited, which is wonderful. And we're non-collecting, we're a non-collecting museum. And that's really important because we engage in risk and experimentation, allowing artists kind of the opportunity to really explore their practice, their medium, and maybe even things that are controversial, difficult to understand, or maybe not everyone's, as they say, cup of tea. When I was the director of Atlanta Contemporary, and I imagine that this will continue, we believe that our institution is non-neutral, meaning that we will engage in conversations that are not going to be neutral to what's happening politically. Of course, we would always receive government funding for the arts, so we don't necessarily promote our beliefs, but we would do exhibitions that engage in conversations that were necessary and topical, such as Yemi Cambronne's Chinga La Migra, or even, I'm just totally glad this is being recorded because I just forgot the artist's name. Lynn Tanzer curated an exhibition by a ceramicist who's in our studio artist program. I'm so sorry, I will think of it later. And it was all about the lack of access to reproductive rights that women are facing in this country. So, we go there. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why art is essential. So real quick, rapid fire around the room. We're going to start over here. And I just want you to say your name and where you're from and what your course of study is or what you do professionally, since not everyone is a student. Go.
So it's Daria. My name is Daria, and I'm originally from Iran. And I'm a teacher at Georgia State University. My concentration is printmaking, but also I'm multidisciplinary artist and intersecting mediums, starting with printmaking.
Hi, my name is Kyung Park. I'm from South Korea. I am a PhD student in civil engineering and structural engineering program.
Excellent, thank you. Nice to meet you. Yes. Yeah,
My name is Johnny Cow. I'm a graduate student from EC department. My research relate to the mass, the micro sensors and all this stuff. I'm from Ithaca, New York.
excellent, thank you. Yes.
My name is Dickens. I'm from Uganda. I'm a PhD student in civil engineering. I specialize in transportation systems.
Transportation, we need that. Thank you. Yes.
I'm Marcus. I'm from California. I'm a master's student in electrical engineering, just focusing on like digital design and the computer systems and software.
Okay, thank you. We'll go straight to the back. Yes.
Hi, my name is Reagan. I am from Atlanta and I'm a master's of environmental engineering student.
Reagan.
Hey, I'm Bernie Robert. I work over in the College of Computing doing events and been doing some art curation. And I recently got a master's at Georgia State in museum anthropology.
I'm Fred Meyer. I'm a faculty member here in civil and environmental engineering. My expertise is in structures and originally from Southern California, a town called Santa Barbara. And big reason I'm here today, I have a lot of interest in the mid-century period in the country here. So mid-century modern art, furniture, that sort of thing.
So good houses in Atlanta for that. Yes.
I'm Lionel Diane, I'm from Paris, France. I teach at the School of Modern Languages. I conduct a study abroad program in Paris and I teach all kind of stuff, French studies. I also love arts and anti-art. Let's call it that way.
Yes.
I'm Leo. I'm a master's student in environmental engineering. I'm from North Forsyth County. And I love art as well. Love going to art museum.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm Aris George Kakis, and I was born and raised close to Naples in Greece.
Okay.
And I'm professor here at the water program and for a long time. But if I had to do it over again, I would sing and play my guitar.
Okay, there's plenty of time for that. Yes.
My name is Matt. I'm a physics postdoc here, and I like surfaces and manifolds.
Okay.
Hi, I am Fatma Hunay. I am from Turkey and I am a master's student at Water Resources Engineering in this department.
Awesome. Okay, we know you. No offense. So those of you who just walked in, please tell me your name, where you're from, and what your degree of study is.
Fine. Hello, I'm Bojun Lee, and I'm CSE PhD student. Enrolled this class, so I'm here.
Okay, you're here. Where are you from originally?
China.
Okay, yes, hi.
I'm Wenjing Song. I'm from China too. I'm a PhD student. My major is civil engineering.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for humoring me. Now that I know where you all are from and what you like, that helps. Okay, so what is art? Not a rhetorical question. What do we think art is? Come on.
Somebody's impression of the world around them.
Okay, an impression of the world around them. Do I have a pen? Are there pens?
I do.
All right, an impression of the world around them. What else? Yeah.
Theater means of expression.
Okay, yeah. That's amazing. Okay. Impression. World around them. Tell me what you said again, I'm sorry.
Visual means of expression.
Another means of expression, visual means of expression.
Experience.
Okay, yes, experience. What else?
Creativity.
Creativity. Okay, what else?
Interpretation.
Interpretation. Okay.
Mirror of the soul.
Oh, mirror of the soul.
Sometimes there's aspects of parody in art.
Okay, parody. Parody. Wow, can't spell today. Don't judge. I'm an art historian.
I just kidding.
Former director. Yes.
I've heard it described as the sublimation of excess libidinal energy.
Wow. Sublimation of excess libidinal energy. So sex, right? Why not? We're all adults.
Not
Okay.
necessarily.
All right, what else? Is that off camera? Good. Okay. What else? Anything else?
Way to interrogate the world.
A way to interrogate the
Question.
world. I love that. Bernie, I saw your hand.
Form of therapy?
Yes. Okay, therapy. Should put that right under sex. What else? Anything else? Do you know it when you see it? That's kind of a sex reference as well, right?
I would say problem solving.
Problem solving. Right? Here, I'll write this over here. Okay, right? But like fundamentally, what is art typically? Right? It's a painting, sculpture, performance, work on paper. It's all these different things, right? It can be made up of a multitude of different shapes, forms, lines, color, etc. But normally it's something that was a little bit more straight in terms of a painting, sculpture, photograph. So this here is Earth Play. So I went to Art Basel, Miami, and this was one of the large scale installations that was in the Meridian section. So I'm going to show you two hyper contemporary pieces today, but we're doing art history today. Okay. Oops, went the wrong way. So this is one of my favorite quotes about what is art. And there's Athens, Greece as well in the background. But this is Tolstoy's quote from a very small little book called What is Art? And he says, in order correctly to define art, it is necessary, first of all, to cease to consider it as a means to pleasure and to consider it as one of the conditions of human life. And I just kind of love that quote. I think it encapsulates everything because, you know, sometimes when you're looking at a work of art, it's not pleasurable, right? Because it can, almost like a mirror, show you things that you don't want to see about yourself. And I think that's really, really important and really fun, really challenging. But, you know, it's a way, like Bernie said, as a form of therapy. It can be cathartic, right? How many of you are runners or you work out, right? Okay. How many of you work out to Mozart? Right? Every once in a while. But what do you really work out to? Like, you don't actually have to tell me the name of the band, but like, what type of music do you work out to?
80s rock.
80s rock, right? Something that gives you energy, that inspires you, that makes you want to physically move, right? I walk and I bounce to like really bad dance music, makes me very happy. But right, you need something that inspires you and lifts you. And so, you know, when we think about what is art, sometimes it can inspire us and lift us. It can move us physically, and we're better people because of it. Okay. So art is, anybody know what this is? I would give you like a prize, but I don't have anything. Yeah. It's not Saint Chappelle. No, it's not. It is another very big.
Notre Dame.
It's Notre Dame. Yeah, it's the rose window of Notre Dame. Yeah, as seen from the interior. Okay, so we're gonna kind of go through, what time do I have to finish by?
It's okay, we have time until 1:45.
1:45.
Can you make 45 minutes?
I can talk all day.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'll bring the
No.
pizza here,
No.
Well, this room is until 2 p.m.
No, we're good.
And then we can move downstairs.
No, we're good. Okay, so one of the ways that I think about, answering the question is what is art is, what are the ways that art has manifested itself? And this is a really important piece. So have any of you seen this piece before? Okay. This is what's called the Magapanskat pebble. It was found in South Africa. It's over 3 million BCE, so before the Common Era. It's made out of a reddish-brown jasperite, or it's not made, that's the whole point, but it's a reddish-brown jasperite, and it's really, really small. So what do you see when you look at this piece right away? A face, right? How many of you all have ever gone for long walks on the beach with a loved one? Anybody? Okay, yes. Some of you are like very hesitant to answer that question, right? And when you're going on long walks at the beach with a loved one, what are you also doing besides talking and waxing poetic about how much you like each other? What do you sometimes also do?
Throw rocks.
Throw rocks, pick up shells. Why? It's fun, right? Why not? Okay, so this is a pebble that an Australopithecus found. So an Australopithecus is a predecessor of early humans. And it is a stone that was found over 20 miles from a cave or its near or the Australopithecus' nearest settlement. And so it's really, really significant. Like, what is art? Art is discovery. Art is also a moment where early predecessors of humans who, none of us were there, but what we know scientifically is there really was no language, no form of speaking, but somehow someone saw something in this stone and thought that it had merit and worth and it was recognizable. And so, 3 million years ago, BCE, so what is that, 3 million, whatever, I'm not gonna do the math again, art historian. Someone was walking down and found this thing, and you can probably think like they didn't find it and not share it, right? It was also probably a moment for two people, perhaps two Australopitheci, perhaps to bond, to share a moment, to experience something together. Again, we weren't there, we don't know, but it's really, really important because they collected it. It has worth. Obviously, where it was found in this cave, they kept it with them. Any of you carry something or wear something with you every single day that like it means something to you and you don't necessarily talk about all the time, but it's like good luck, right? Wedding rings, necklaces, things like that. So though it actually has no monetary value, it is intrinsically valuable to that Australopithecus. And in the prehistoric era of art, there are two modes of art making. There's portable, that which can be carried, because of course, these people were what type of people? Did they like build houses and hang out and dipping on their cell phones? No, what did they do all the time? They traveled, right? Yeah, they followed the herds. They went to where they could, thrive and live, right? So portable and cave. And like, is this an early form of collection? I have an extensive art collection. My husband wants to kill me. I still buy art. But the idea of surrounding yourself with beautiful objects that have meaning and that matter to you. And again, what's the most interesting thing, and I think I have another, no, I don't. What's the most interesting thing about this piece is, of course, it wasn't incised. It was not carved. It was found like this. So the earth herself wore this object down in such a way that it looks like a face. Okay, I know you've seen this because I looked at your syllabi. So yes, these are the caves of Lascaux. So what is art? Art is ritual. So, what do we know about cave painting? Yes?
I mean, that they were like very good artists already, and talking about the rituals.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, close to Lascaux, there's 300 kilometers, south of Lascaux, so it's not that close. Also have this cave called Pechmel.
Yes.
Where amazing artwork, and they were artists, not just discovering the ability to draw, but they were already playing with volumes and the asperities of the rock and the
exactly. Yes.
And the ritual, actually, the most moving art is not the rocks, prehistoric horses, drawings, but basically sometimes the entrance where women were giving birth. That was the most sacred place.
Exactly, right?
Just amazing.
It's amazing. So, there is this tendency to look back negatively on those who came before us and to judge them by today's standards. And that's happened a lot with prehistoric art in particular, as well as art that is not from the Western canon. So we can go there. But here from the caves of Lascaux, we have, and I think I have a nice, yes, right? We have this incredible understanding when this was discovered. We thought, people thought that individuals who were from the prehistoric era had no way of comprehending the world around them. Well, of course, we were then rendered wrong. When we look at these cave paintings, we see, depictions of the herd, and we think about, why were these works of art made? Was it made for ritualistic purposes? Was it made to ensure that the herd remained in this location? Was it to summon them? Of course, we have no true understanding of what, these works really mean. But what we do see, again, oh, no, I took out some slides because I was worried about time. What we do see is that these individuals understood composition, line, shade, coloring, modeling, all the things today, which for those of you who have ever tried to draw a human figure or, a water bottle and render it on a two-dimensional surface, how easy is it? Right, it's not easy, right? So the idea of trying to create something in real time of your, surrounding environment, it exists here. And of course, one of the other things about the Caves of Lascaux is that we also see what's called twisted horn perspective, which is a very interesting way of looking at the world. So how many of you have ever worked with kids in drawing? Okay, yeah. So how does a kid draw a stick figure? Or a figure, rather. I just answered my own question, sorry.
Very expressive without thinking about.
Right, yeah, right. Right, so they'll draw, sorry, I'll come this way. Sorry, right, so they'll draw, here's that, right? And if you ask like a 7-year-old, do they stop there? No, right? Next thing you know, now they have hair, and it's like mommy always wears earrings and she loves frilly dresses. All of a sudden they start to actually kind of add information. And so what's really fascinating here about this twisted horn perspective is that we see the animal both in profile and frontally. Because it doesn't matter, right? What they're trying to do, and this is important when we get to what is essential about art, is they're trying to render the animal truly, as if it exists here. It's not an image of an animal, it is an animal. Remember that, that's important. Okay, what is art? Art is immortality. Anybody have any ideas? Who these, it says Menkora and wife, but do you know who Menkora was? Anybody? He was really important, he was a pharaoh. Right, yes, he was a pharaoh. So of the 3 pyramids of Giza, one of them is his. So if that helps kind of understand. And in ancient Egypt, you can kind of say like the Romans and Greeks lived. And you can say that the ancient Egyptians lived too, but where do we find most of their work? Most of their objects? Where do we find them? In their tombs, exactly, right? So we find most of what and of course, what type of person are we talking about as well? Is the normal everyday man, are we finding their objects? No, we're talking about queens and kings and scribes and pharaohs and, the elite of the echelon of ancient Egypt. So this is Menkora and wife. It's made out of gray whack. And so the red jasperate and gray whack, they're both a really hard stone. And so this is really, really important because imagine you're a pharaoh and you basically, the day you become pharaoh, you commission your architect like Imhotep, who did not actually, by the way, do Menkora's tomb, but it's a name. He's the first known name of an architect in the history of art, is Imhotep. You commission your architect to start building your tomb. So like day 1, inauguration day, building your tomb. And you build it and it's there and you were extremely wealthy and affluent. You close your tomb up and within hours, what do you think the normal everyday man wants to do with all of the objects in your tomb? What do we know? Loot them, exactly, right? So loot them. So you have this giant ritualistic temple filled with gold and jewels and gemstones and all these wonderful things. And the everyday man wants to gather these things to then melt them down, sell them, use them, etc. And of course, too, if you weren't a good pharaoh, what do you think the everyday man wants to do with your sculptures? Destroy them or topple them, exactly. So in ancient Egypt, the Egyptians believed that objects such as this held the ka, or the soul. So again, we had soul earlier, right? So that this object actually held the individual's spirit. So this is Menkora and wife, Kemerenepti. Note, it is contained in a block of stone. It's an extremely hard stone, so it would take actually a stone that is harder than it to break. You couldn't just like throw it down on the ground and destroy it. It stood in the temple complex. It's nearly life-size. There's this idealization and perfection. And of course, the position of who they are, and this is quite fascinating, right? She is behind him. She is standing literally a little bit behind him. She is a part of him, though. They're carved from the same stone. And he would have been, and everybody always asks this, but he would have been holding like a wheelbarrow or something forward, like carrying something into the afterlife. That's where that comes from. So, and if you look, I think I have, yeah. Again, everything is carved from the stone, so nothing would break. Okay, so it's immortality. And for you Harry Potter fans out in the world, right, the Ka is the spirit. And, you know, as we know with Lord Voldemort, they had to get all of the rings and the books and the things to destroy them, and that's how they killed Voldemort. So, ancient technique of remaining immortal. Right? And here you can see a really good image where she's just behind him, which is interesting. When we get to here, art is equality-ish. Okay, so this is the sarcophagus of the reclining couple. It's from Cerveteri in Italy. It's from 520 BCE. It's painted terracotta. It's also found from a tomb. Cerveteri is a tomb. And here they are, right? And this is really fascinating because this is twisted horn perspective in sculpture form. So what do you notice about this couple? What do they look like they're doing? Versus Menkourian wife. Which one would you rather hang out with? Right, yeah. Yeah, you'd rather hang out with this one, right? So here you have this couple. In the Etruscan culture, women actually had a lot of power. Women had their own, I mean, to this day, you wouldn't use the same terminology, but they had their own finances or bank accounts. They had their own wealth. They could actually divorce their husbands, no questions asked. They were considered equal. And so here you have this man and this woman, and they are, you know, talking, they're in conversation, they're holding court. They most likely would have been holding some sort of cup that would have held wine or maybe something that could be burned. But what I love about it, and what I think is great for, as you know, I lived in Italy, is to me, she looks like she's doing this, which is such an Italian gesture, like, come on, what are you saying? I just love it. It's so dynamic. It's so fun. And yet here they are in death, living, which I think is really fascinating. And of course, Google Cerveteri, there's some amazing works. Okay, so there's the archaic smile, which is, it depicts life, so they're smiling. Unlike the Greeks, again, women were treated as equal, their eyes would have been painted, and that's, you know, big misnomer of ancient sculptures and classical art. They always would have been painted, they would have never just been white, or in this case, terracotta. It's very intimate, there's a lot of familiarity, and, you know, ultimately this would inform Roman arts and crafts. Right? Don't they look fun? No. Anyway, if you had to pick your like sculptures to come alive, sort of, you know, night at the museum. Okay, what is art? Art is recreation. Obviously, this is the Colosseum or the Flavian Amphitheater. What's really important is, of course, Rome. No offense to the Italians in the room, me being one of them. Romans were the great borrowers, right? They're like, ooh, that's a good idea. Ooh, that's a good idea. Ooh, that's a good idea, right? And so what they typically did was they would take all of other people's ideas and kind of cap it in Rome, at Romanness. So when you look at this, and it's kind of tough to see here, there's actually 4 layers to the Colosseum, or 4 registers to the Colosseum. So you have the Doric, the Ionic, the Corinthian, and what's called the rusticated or the Roman. So it's obviously what they're doing is saying like, okay, we're gonna take ancient Greco or Greek architecture, and then we're gonna put Rome on top. So here it is. Very beautiful building. Anybody been besides my Italian? Yeah, yes, it's so beautiful. Okay, so it took approximately 10 years to build. This is a feat of engineering for you engineering people in the room, right? This is a marvel. And we're gonna look at another one in a minute, but this is an incredible building. What stood here was not good for the people of Rome. And so Vespasian used it as a way to bring Rome together. And of course, obviously, there would be games, reenactments, an execution here or there. But basically what it was a way for people to gather and come together. And obviously, culture hasn't come that far from it, right? There's soccer, or football, depending on who I'm talking to. There's American football, there's basketball. These ideas of bringing people together around sports and recreation. It's a brick-faced concrete. The recipe will be lost with the fall of the Roman Empire. So in just a few years, bye-bye concrete. It held about 65,000 patrons, most of which were not women. Sorry, ladies. But it was a really incredible building, again, to bring people together and to have an opportunity to celebrate something. Because I imagine living in ancient Rome would have been not always a positive space. And of course, here you can see they've added this flooring to it, so you can see what it was. Yeah.
One thing that's really interesting about this that a lot of people don't know is the assumption is parts of it have fallen down over the years.
Right.
But it really is not the case. They actually went and took materials out of it to build other things. So it was like a source of, it's like going to Home Depot in those days.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason why it's no longer marble faced is because they took marble. Yeah, exactly. It's a very typical way of people borrowing from ancient sculptures. I went to school at University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and half of the city of St. Andrews is built from the cathedral ruins. So yeah, but interesting little sidebar. Nuremberg Cathedral was actually hit by a direct bomb of the Allied soldiers on January 2nd. And the people of Nuremberg are very proud people, and they went and actually salvaged all of the stone, and they rebuilt the cathedral back after World War II ended. So, by the way, little tidbit. Okay, invention. So what is art? Art is invention. This is a gardenscape. It's a second style of painting from the Villa of Prima Porta in Italy. Prima Porta is very close to a volcano that erupted called Vesuvius, and it was buried actually under volcanic ash and rock. And so when it was excavated, it was found almost perfectly intact, which is very, very fascinating. So it was preserved for us today. One of the things that's really, really important is not dissimilar to losing concrete. Again, we like to judge the past through today's lens. And so there was this belief that the ancients or the Romans, even though they were, making these incredible monumental buildings, didn't know things. Well, actually, as we discover, they invented linear perspective. So it exists here. And one of the things about Rome and Roman culture is it's not dissimilar from today. If you didn't need the building anymore, tear it down, build another one. So there was a lot of progress. But here we see illusion and depth. We see the linear perspective, which again is receding lines which converge on a single point. And it was thought to be a Renaissance invention, but it was not. So what is art? Art is invention. Art is also didactic. Anybody know what didactic means? Yeah.
It means it tries to teach something.
Yeah, it's instructional. Exactly. So this is the fall of Rome has happened. We are getting into early Christianity. You see, I'm like moving very fast through the arts. And here, most of the people cannot read, they cannot write, but mosaics were a way to visually represent what was happening at the pulpit, basically. So here we have a moment in the Bible where Jesus does the miracle of the loaves and the fishes. And this is where, again, semiotics, color, line, shape, gesture, movement, lack thereof, really, really matters. So the way in which Jesus performs the miracle is for those of you who are up on your Bible. If you're not, that's cool, I'll explain. Anybody know the story?
Vaguely, yes.
Vaguely? Okay. You can be vague. I'll fill in the gaps, go for it.
Sorry, so you said what is he doing again?
It's the miracle of the loaves and the fishes. Yeah, Jerusha.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, whoever.
Well, I guess he was trying to feed the people there and that.
And what happened? Anybody?
Large group.
Right.
And needing to feed them, they only had a small amount of fishes and bread. And the miracle was that he multiplied those to be able to feed the large group.
Great. Yeah. And from what we understand from theology and from, again, visually representation, is it's tough to represent a miracle, right? And the way in which this unknown artist from early Christianity does it is they find a way to show Jesus is royal, right? He's wearing purple here. He's young and clean shaven. Of course, this is a Western interpretation of Jesus. He is a white man here. And the way in which he shows the miracle is he just does this, right? Excuse me, he has a halo, right? He basically says to his apostles, pass it out, right? And imagine you're an apostle. What would you do? You're like, imagine if you went to a party and there was only one bottle of wine and you're like, just pour everybody and there's 25 people there, right? You'd be like, you're insane, right? And that's the miracle. And not only in this moment do we see this, but as we know from the biblical story, not only did they pass out loaves and fishes and feed everyone, but there was extra. Right, so here they are. This is the beautiful thing about churches is, of course, they're built over centuries. La Sagrada Familia just now finished its roof in Madrid. So certain motifs become really evident in early Christianity. Jesus is royal. We see a crown, purple robe, young, unshaven, right? And of course, when you look at the disciples or apostles, do they look like they totally agree with him and they like have faith in him? No, right? They're like, okay, right? Again, it's didactic, it's instructional. So that way, when you're sitting in this church, actually standing, there were no seats at the time, you would have information, you have something to look at. Okay, art is reinvention. This is a diagram demonstrating Filippo Brunelleschi's perspective technique from a lost painting. So Brunelleschi is the architect, an individual who was basically the only crazy man in Florence. And when they built this incredible cathedral in Florence, and they built it so well and so beautifully that the dome base was too wide and they couldn't figure out how to span it. And so it became a blight on the city of Florence for years. No one could figure out how are we going to build this dome. There wasn't enough timber. There wasn't enough technology, basically. And so Brunelleschi thought, I can figure that out, right? So it's reinvention. It's the idea, and until recently, it still is, by the way, the largest masonry dome in the history of the world and in modern day times, right? It was the biggest dome for a very, very long time. And Brunelleschi, it's the idea of, what is art, what makes it essential, is engaging in that risk, taking that time to figure it out, not being daunted by it. Like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can make the coffee.
But he was really crazy because
He was
how
insane.
they build that, they basically, they fold it.
Yeah.
He did it separately and then
Yeah.
they let it go and he was like, they were lucky that they nicely, combine. I mean, he could have very risky stuff.
So to your point, so you could spend an entire year dissecting Brunelleschi's dome. Like that's how fascinating it is. And there's a book called Brunelleschi's Dome. It's wonderful and riveting. And when they decided to actually start, so they started making it, doing interlocking masonry. And you can see here, it's actually, there's a space between them. So it's we can get really engineering, we can get like super into it, but we don't have enough time. But the day that they decided to actually start turning the dome towards the earth, people went and sat outside and brought wine and cheese and watched like it was a party. And some of them were betting that it would fail, right? It was entertainment. Okay, what is art? Art is power. Okay, I'm doing all right.
You are fine, you are
Okay.
fine, please keep going.
Art is power. This is Artemisia Gentileschi. Notice, by the way, we're in the Common Era, but 1620, so we're in the 17th century. She is the first, unless you do your homework, this is the first woman's name mentioned in an art history book, right here. And I imagine there are a lot of women helping out at the Gothic cathedrals and many, many other things, but here she is, Artemisia Gentileschi. This is a story of Judith slaying Holofernes. And I show this because art is power, because of course, Caravaggio, the bad boy of art history. But here, this is Caravaggio's version, Caravaggio slaying of Judith slaying Holofernes in 1598 to 99. And sorry, I forgot that 1620. I was like, wait. And then we have Gentileschi's. Gentileschi was an amazing artist. She was also a very smart and sophisticated woman. She worked actually under her father in her father's studio, and she was raped as a young woman. And she actually sued her rapist and won. It took a lot of energy and a lot of time, but she was very, very, very frustrated that she couldn't surpass being a woman within her time. And so she
was tortured
she was tortured. Yeah, she was
to show that she was not lying.
right. Yeah, they did the thumb presses. But here I love showing this depiction because Caravaggio, of course, is the artist who really understands and defines light, takes Da Vinci's sfumato and moves it forward. But here what we see, right? Look at Caravaggio's depiction of how Judith is slaying Holofernes. And look at Artemisia Gentileschi's. Like, what do you notice? What's different? Yeah, Bernie.
Woman's more empowered in her painting than that one.
Right. Yeah. How would you describe the woman in Caravaggio's painting? Like, what adjectives would we use?
Young and uncertain.
Right. Very, very young, beautiful, uncertain, right? Maybe even squeamish. I can't imagine that beheading a man with a sword is an easy task. I've never tried it. But right? But what we see in Artemisia Gentileschi's, right, is first of all, the women are much more monumental. They're still extremely beautiful, right? They're rendered as well in golds and in reds, like really lush colors. And they're in it, right? The blood, of course, is going everywhere in Caravaggio's as well, but it's more about the man's experience. And here in Gentileschi's, we see the woman, right? Her lady servant is sitting on him to hold him down, right? They drugged him, they did all these things, but you can imagine getting beheaded would wake you up, right? So we hear and see this powerful depiction of a woman, not only as an artist in her own right, but representing women in an extremely powerful way. Right, here we go. It's a good close-up.
That is basically a figuration of the bad guy that.
Oh, yeah, right?
I think she did it for that.
Yeah.
He wants to basically, was like a revenge, something that she could.
Right?
Cathartic,
Exactly,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
cathartic.
who said that, right? We had interrogating the world therapy, right? This is Baroque therapy on a large oil manner. Okay, art is genius. This is Rembrandt. So this is the painting with circles. And what we know about Rembrandt too is he really liked muddy colors. You know, we're not getting too far into Rembrandt, but Rembrandt shows himself as just a painter, right? He wasn't just a painter, but here he is, right? We have the idea, and it's been established already with Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel and the artist's genius and Da Vinci and Caravaggio and even Gentileschi. But here we have Rembrandt kind of showing himself as like, hey, I'm just a guy. I'm just a painter. But does he? What's in the background? What do you notice? What are they? What is behind his head? Two circles. Yeah, I should have gotten this out earlier. I'm sorry. Right. So this little book here. I went old school. I brought my slides in a book. Okay. So there's a story from Vasari's Lives of the Most Eminent Painters and Sculptors and Architects of Giotto. I have to read this to you. It's very good. Pope Benedict IX of Treviso sent one of his courtiers to Tuscany to see what sort of man was Giotto and what kind of his works, having designed some pictures made in St. Peter's. A courtier, coming in order to see Giotto and to hear what the other masters there in Florence, excellent in painting and mosaic, talked to many masters. Then, having received drawings from them, he came to Florence, the courtier, and went into the shop of Giotto, who was working, declared to him the mind of the Pope, and in what way it was proposed to make use of his labor, and at last asked him for some little drawing to the end he might send it to his holiness. Giotto, who was most courteous, took a paper and on that with a brush dipped in red, holding his arm fast against his side in order to make a compass, with a turn of his hand made into a circle. So true in proportion and circumference that to behold it was a marvel. This done, he smiled, said to the courtier, "Here's your drawing." The courtier, then thinking that he was being derided, said, "Am I to have no other drawing but this? 'Tis enough and to spare," answered Giotto. "Send it together with the others, and you will see if it will be recognized." The envoy, seeing that he could get nothing else, left him, very ill-satisfied and wondering whether he had been fooled, at the same time sending it to the Pope and the other drawings and the names of those who had made them. He also sent that of Giotto's, relating the method that he had followed in making his circle without moving his arm and without a compass. Wherefore the Pope and his many courtiers that were versed in the arts recognized by this how much Giotto had surpassed in excellence all of the other painters of his time. It's a party trick, right? Giotto cannot be bothered to draw something and perform, right? Giotto being an early Renaissance artist. And here Rembrandt knows the story and paints two circles behind him, basically saying, I too am a genius, right? A party trick. Try and draw a perfect circle, right? Is it possible? Rembrandt's saying basically he could do it. Giotto did it. So he's putting himself in this class of artists. Okay, speaking of circles, we have an orrery. This is Joseph Wright of Derby, a philosopher lecturing at the orrery. So what do you all see here? Before I move on, because I answered the question in the next slide. Do you know what an orrery is? Does anyone know what an orrery is? It's a scientific tool that lays out the solar system with the sun being in the center. So it's an ancient way of rendering the solar system. Sun being at the center, right? So we're in the Enlightenment here. And we're also at this time, right? We're early days of Enlightenment, I should say. But at this time too, what we start to see, and we kind of started to see it in the early Gothic traditions with the advent of institutions and academic universities such as this, that the light of God starts being replaced by the light of science, learning and science, right? So here, the light of God is literally the sun. And not the sun god, not Apollo, not Jesus, literally, physically, the sun. So here we have the light, and literally and figuratively, it is the sun. And so again, teachers, academics, universities, they become the new places where people make pilgrimage to. No longer the church, right? The Enlightenment starts to use the
I wonder if the
title.
person in the shadow represent the past.
It could, right?
Because I mean, it's kind of an intrusion there. It's kind of, isn't it?
Well, it's a tool. So again, to use our buddy Giotto, Giotto actually is the first artist in history that we found so far to actually portray the backs of people in art. And the way that he did that and why he did that was an introduction of humanism. So it was a way in which we, as viewers, were a part of looking at it. So it might be a tool not to put this person in shadow, but also maybe we are them. We're learning, we're novice. Okay, that's in, I'll think of it in a second. Giotto's, the Arena Chapel. And they look like they're having fun. Very, like, this is, you know, Rodin's thinker right here.
It's also interesting, the twilight or the chiaroscuro is used the complete opposite way of basically how it was used a century before.
Of course.
It's like, I mean, light, enlightenment, reason, science coming to you.
Exactly.
Light versus darkness.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, when Vermeer uses, I mean, chiaroscuro, no, it's just like to make it all the more mysterious and blurry.
Exactly.
Whereas here it's almost at the propagandistic value.
Yeah, it's almost like shock. Yeah.
Shock value, yeah.
Exactly. I know, I'm like running behind, but okay.
No, you're fine.
I'm fine. Okay, I know some of you have to go, which, thank you for being here. So what is art? Art is color. So here we have Monet's La Gare Saint-Lazare. So of course, obviously, again, we're in the 19th century. I've like decided to pick things that are 100 years apart now. So here it sort of, here is Monet sitting in a train station. And basically, you know, whatever you want to say about the Impressionists, when I was an undergraduate, loved to be an Impressionist hater. I loved hating on the Impressionists. And then I saw a Monet in real life and I started crying and I was totally a convert. Because what I realized when I saw the painting in real life is that the Impressionists are nothing more, besides being excellent painters, than colorists, right? When you look at their work and you see, you're like, what color is smoke? Oh my gosh, the smoke is neon green and purple and gray and white and yellow. You know, if you look at the world around you, it's not just, the sky is not just blue. So Impressionism and the artists are simply colorists. They're interested in the modern world, right? It's not, you know, it is obviously haystacks and churches and things like that, right? This is a train station. This is super gritty. This is where people are every single day. It's, you know, dirty and nasty and moving people. This is why Impressionists, I have a misspelling. Sorry. Paint the same scene or object over and over and over again, right? The thing is, for any of you who are musicians or draftsmen, right? That sort of skill of doing something, printmakers, right? Doing something over and over and over, you're refining your muscles, the small movements of doing something. And so you're training not just your eye, but also your hands. I had to put it in because it was the piece I picked. So my thesis in grad school was about Redon. So that's why he's here. Redon is a symbolist and a post-impressionist. So what we see, and we'll get there in a second, but what we see, right, is we have the science replacing the light of God. We have light literally in color becoming the most important thing. And, you know, we have somebody trying to paint like technically what's happening in the solar system. And then we have someone who's trying to paint what is our experience of the modern world? What does it look like? And then we have somebody like Redon who says, what does my mind think it looks like? It's not about what actually does the world look like. What do I think the world looks like? And Redon's world is a little off. And that's why I love him.
He's a symbolist.
Do what?
He's a symbolist.
He's a symbolist, exactly, right? So post-impressionists are symbolists. He painted what his mind saw. He brought to life his dreams and fantasies. And the French symbolists, of course, revered his work. This is Smiling Spider. I love this piece. He used myth, legend, and anthropomorphism. And again, you can get deep into who he was as a man and why he did these things. My course of study was on Redon's album to Edgar Allan Poe. I'm a huge Poe fan, so I like the dark stuff. And then we have this piece. This is Richard Hamilton's Just What Makes It Today's Home So Different, So Appealing. I love this piece. I also knew there was a Dadaist that was going to be here today. So I love this piece. I think this is really great. This is an invention of pop. So it's collage, which is then made into a poster. It depicts an interest in culture and modern technology. The images were taken from lots of different magazines from the United States. The work was seen as didactic, again, instructional or informative, telling viewers just what was happening or what was important at the time. There's humor, sex, what was literally popular, right? I mean, this is intentional. That is meant to be funny. It's meant to be irreverent. It's meant to be a joke. It's literally pointing at her, right? So there's all these funny little tricks and tips that Hamilton is using to dissect it, right? This is wildly technologically advanced. Today it looks funny. Okay, so then why is art essential? Okay, this space. So, and then I'll end here. I know I went over.
No, you're
Right.
fine, you're fine.
So this is Cezanne. Cezanne is a post-impressionist. He's also the father of modern art, right? So imagine we've come all this way. We've done such like the speediest tour of art history ever. And we land with Cezanne, and before we get to contemporary culture. And why Cezanne is so incredible is because he's quoted as having said, "I will astonish Paris with an apple." But what Cezanne does, and later Picasso does, is they try to forget everything that they've learned, right? So my mom and I got into anecdotally, but my mom and I got into a super heated conversation one day in front of my niece. My niece was drawing and she was coloring. And she was coloring a princess book, as you do when you're 5. And she had lots of crayons and she was coloring the princess, and she started coloring the princess purple. And my mom said to my niece, she said, "Baby, people are not purple." And I lost my mind. And my mom was like, "Whoa," right? And I was like, "Mom, people can be whatever color you want." I'm like, "What color are people, Mom?" Right? Then we start getting into this conversation. And then it turned into this really heated conversation where, like, where do these rules come from? Right? She's 5 and she was just told people are not purple. And so then you start rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3. And then all of a sudden you look and you're like, I can't paint an apple. And Cezanne is interested in not painting an apple. He's not interested in painting the apple. I should have brought an apple. The apple in front of him. He's interested in why he says he will astonish Paris with an apple is because he's trying to paint something that exists 3-dimensionally on a 2-dimensional surface. He's trying to paint the idea of apple. That's why he's the father of art. That's why art is essential. It's because it's no longer about, like, what do I see? What do I do? How do I interpret the world, right? All of these answers, by the way, are right. That's the best part about art. There's no wrong answer. But Cezanne is so important because he tries to show us that this apple exists here in a moment of time, and it represents what the idea of apple is. And then, of course, we have, Magritte. This is not a pipe. It's a pipe, but it's a picture of a pipe, right? It starts this incredible anti-art conversation. It's a springboard. So, right? Okay. That's it. That's all. We're over.
So let's see, there is someone online, some questions from our virtual friends.
British museums. That's it.
Okay, well, can you click on the people? Let's see who is there.
Somebody just bailed.
Carol, Lynette. Carol, do you have any questions?
Not really. I thought it was a very good run through, very interesting with and I really love the enthusiasm in the comments. So I'm not sure I have anything particular to say. I know Cezanne was a friend of Émile Zola, the French novelist, but they had a falling out. So that's where you ended up, and that was my last thought. But thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. See you next week. Okay, so now Jerusha.
Oh, I really enjoyed this talk.
Can you speak louder, Jerusha?
I really enjoyed this talk, but what's your elevator speech when someone asks what is art and you don't have 45, minutes?
45 minutes?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. What is my elevator speech? I guess I would say that it would depend on who I'm talking to, right? It would depend on if it's a 5-year-old or a 95-year-old. But I think to me, what is art? Art is what makes life matter. I think to me, art is a way of interpreting the world around you, of course, like same kind of concepts. Art is my life, right? It has become my life. I don't know. That's a good thing to exercise, that muscle of the elevator pitch. But I don't know. Part of the reason why and then I'll stop, but part of the reason why I am started, this is not an elevator pitch, right? I would still be talking, the elevator doors would close. But part of the reason why I want to create Kartofi is I want to get into the living rooms, right? I think that's really, really important. I ran an institution where everybody had to come to me. I don't want to do that, right? I want to come to you, and I want to meet everybody on their level. And so to me, there is this idea that art is not for me. It doesn't look like me. I don't speak the language, right, of the form of art. And so I guess I would say that art is whatever you want it to be on a level, but art is accessible. It's also inherently not accessible. Like, it's all these things. It is polarities of thinking, and I don't know. Art is a visual language. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it speaks its own language. And our job as an art historian or a museum director, an educator, is to explain what it is. But at the same time, the way I see it and the way you see it are going to be fundamentally different experiences. So that kind of negative space, I think that's what art is. Sorry. Yeah.
Other questions? Aris? I put you on the spot.
Okay.
What similarities do you see between arts and sciences?
What similarities do I see?
Do you see them distinctly, two fields of
Absolutely
knowledge
not.
that
No.
distinct, or you
No,
see?
no. I mean, at the same time, in the Royal Academy, speaking of British museums, at the Royal Academy in London, you had artists studying next to scientists, right? The reason why JMW Turner was painting atmospheric paintings was because he was hanging out with scientists as they're figuring out what to name clouds. I mean, they were so closely entwined.
But not only that, I think what you feel as an artist when you create something really, you're in the zone, let's say.
Yeah.
A scientist feels too, when
Exactly.
they do their thing and they're in the zone as
Exactly.
well. So I think we have an expression, state of the art
Right.
development. It's a nice expression because it's really
Mhm.
about that. I mean, it's about creativity and
Mhm.
putting everything into that creation of yours, emotions and your spirit and your mind.
Mhm.
That's what you do too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think, thank you, first of all, but, I mean, I think that idea, like, a chef does that, right, too,
Yeah.
when they're in the zone. And I think it's when all of a sudden everything clicks, right? And I took, when I was a first year in college, I took a class about Ludwig Wittgenstein and the Tractatus, right? It's a very dense book. And, we spent an entire semester breaking down that book. And it's like, we all figured it out, and then it was like, okay, articulate it. And all of us were just like, boom. Like, the language was not, there was not enough language to explain what we had just learned. But Wittgenstein says, that which cannot be said must be left to the silence, right? And I'm paraphrasing, it's not exactly that. And that's where I think science and art and being a chef or being a florist, right? You know that it has beauty or that it matters or that it makes sense. But the moment you try to articulate it, you're instantly dumber, right? You can't explain it, right? It's like, how do you teach somebody to drive? You put them in a car, right? You can't like teach somebody how to drive without putting them, you don't teach kids how to ride a bike by like, okay, so what you do, right? You put them on the bike and you let them fail. And I think that's really important too. And it's something that all of these artists did, right? Everybody wanted Brunelleschi to fail, and he did, right? But he also didn't see failure as a complete loss to give up. Like, he couldn't figure out how to get the bricks up to a certain height, so he built the thing to do it, right? He didn't see that as like an obstacle. And Brunelleschi is the perfect marriage between science and art, because he wasn't daunted. He was like, I'll build a, XYZ thing.
Yeah. So I think
So, yeah.
this exuberance that you feel when you create something new,
Yeah.
we feel too.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
When you create something, and like there's some sloppy ones. There's some people that
Oh, yeah.
do stupid things on both camps, I think.
Yeah.
But then there's this real creators that when they do something, they connect things that nobody connected before.
Yeah.
And that's what you do, and that's huge. Probably the most satisfying thing that humans can feel.
Of course, that transformative moment, right? We've all been, at a play or at a lecture or experiencing some sort of, musical piece and we're transfixed.
And one more thing, there is a Turkish philosopher. In one of his essays, he says, there are people who speak and they say nothing. There are people who speak a lot and they somehow accidentally say something that's very important, but they don't understand themselves. And there are people who know a lot, understand a lot, but they don't speak. And when you meet this kind of folks, it's good to just listen. I mean, let your ear within your ear, it says. Listen to their spirit and take from that whatever is meaningful to you. So it goes to what your comment was about. How can you express certain things? I mean, you don't have to sometimes. You look at a creation like that and you take something that is a little bit abstract and it speaks to you directly in your machine language, let's say. and that's all there is.
Yeah.
I mean, the critics sometimes go too far and
Of course. Yeah, it's a joke and I know this is being recorded, but one of the things I always used to say when I was looking for a partner in life is I want to go to a museum and not have them ask me any questions. And my husband is, a lovely guy and he's, an artist in his own right, he's an actor. But like, he doesn't walk up to a Pollock and be like, what does it mean? Right? So, yeah.
So do you know Alan, you know Alan Avari? He has the art gallery.
Oh,
In
yeah.
Miami Circle.
Yeah.
So, he basically, he knew all the famous artists in New York, Liam Stan, and even met. And so one time I asked him, what is art for you? And basically he told me, yes, you have all these artists that, they can draw super realistically, they can do photorealism. They have all this amazing skill, but so what? I mean, okay, you have all these skills.
Oh, yeah.
But tell me how you see the world, use them to tell me how you see the world around you. Tell me your story, so that's I remember. So do you agree with that, with those statements?
Totally. I mean, Willem de Kooning was an amazing draftsman, as was Lichtenstein. Like both of them, they're early de Kooning paintings that are practically photorealism, right? I mean, his ability to draw was astounding. But that's not what he drew.
Yeah.
Right? But again, he, I guess, exercised those muscles so well that he broke the rules. Like, the only way to break the rules is to learn all of them first, right? If you're gonna speed, you better know how fast your car can actually go, kind of thing. And so that, I think, is really key. I agree, on a level that, but at the same time, like, you can become a draftsman, you can be taught those skills, but you can't really be taught to be creative. And you can't really be taught to take to take a risk, right? If it's not in your bones, you're not gonna do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you a selfish question?
Oh, I'll try and answer it.
What do you think the Greeks contributed to art?
Wow.
Sculpture.
What do I think the Greeks contributed to art?
Sorry.
I think they contributed a lot. I mean, I think, God.
No, I mean, in terms of the novelty they introduced from before them, I'm saying, what did they do that was so special or different from before, and therefore changed the way
course of
that,
history?
yeah, I mean, the course of art, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a tough question, right? Because they were great borrowers too. But I think, gosh, I don't know. I have
Okay,
to.
we'll talk about all of it.
Yeah, let's have some.
Yeah, let's get the pizza because
I might get
it's
shot, right?
Okay, so in the main lobby, let's meet downstairs. So there will be the pizza. So, and thank you, Veronica.
Of course.
And
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'll take care of that.
Okay, bye, people. Are you gonna be breaking bread with us or?
I like the circles, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes the Antico. How do I get out of here?
I think you have to stop sharing.
Oh yeah, we need to stop recording actually. So.
Thank you for. Of course.